Imagine being locked in a cage, gawked at by hundreds of strangers. This was the reality for many indigenous peoples in the 19th and 20th centuries. They were displayed in human zoos, a shameful practice that treated human beings as exhibits. These displays were not about celebrating cultural diversity. Instead, they aimed to reinforce the racist belief that Europeans were superior to other races. This essay explores the disturbing history of human zoos and their lasting impact on our perceptions of race. Human zoos first emerged in the courts of European monarchs. These early exhibitions often featured people from colonized regions, presented as exotic curiosities. For example, King Louis XIV of France kept a Senegalese man named Ngon at his court. Ngon was forced to convert to Christianity and act as a symbol of French colonial power. These early displays set the stage for larger, more elaborate human zoos that would follow. One of the most infamous early examples was the exhibition of the Aztec children in London in 1853. These children, who were actually of indigenous Mexican descent, were presented as descendants of the ancient Aztec civilization. They were forced to perform traditional dances and rituals for the entertainment of paying audiences. The exhibition of the Aztec children is a stark reminder of how human zoos exploited indigenous peoples for profit and entertainment. The late 19th and early 20th centuries saw the rise of large-scale human zoos. One of the key figures in this period was Carl Hagenbeck, a German animal dealer and zoo director. Hagenbeck pioneered the concept of the naturalistic zoo enclosure, where animals were displayed in environments that resembled their natural habitats. However, Hagenbeck also applied this approach to human exhibits. Hagenbeck believed that by presenting indigenous peoples in natural settings, he was providing a more authentic and educational experience for visitors. In reality, these displays were just as exploitative and dehumanizing as their predecessors. Hagenbeck's human zoos often featured staged scenes of primitive life, with indigenous peoples forced to perform stereotypical activities such as hunting, cooking, and dancing. These performances reinforced racist notions about the supposed savagery and backwardness of non-European cultures. The exhibitions of human beings in zoos were not just a form of entertainment, they were presented as scientific endeavors. Pseudoscientific theories like phrenology were used to justify the subjugation of non-European peoples. Phrenology, which claimed to determine personality and intelligence based on skull shape, was used to argue that Europeans had larger, more developed brains. These flawed theories were widely accepted in the scientific community at the time, and were used to justify colonialism, slavery, and other forms of racial oppression. The idea that Europeans were biologically superior to other races permeated every aspect of society, from scientific research to popular culture. Human zoos provided a visual representation of these racist ideologies, reinforcing the belief that people of color were less than human. Section 5. Beyond the zoos. The pervasiveness of the exotic. The influence of human zoos extended far beyond their physical boundaries. The images and stories generated by these exhibitions were disseminated through newspapers, postcards, and other forms of media. This widespread exposure helped to normalize the dehumanization of non-European peoples, shaping public perception and influencing social policies. The impact of this can still be felt today in the way certain cultures are represented in media and entertainment. The exoticization and fetishization of people of color, particularly women, can be traced back to the racist ideologies that underpinned human zoos. These harmful stereotypes continue to contribute to discrimination and prejudice in the modern world. Section 6. The spectacle of Saartjie Baartman, a legacy of objectification. One of the most tragic and well-documented examples of the exploitation inherent in human zoos is the story of Saartjie Baartman. Baartman, a young Khoikhoi woman from South Africa, was brought to Europe in 1810 under false pretenses. She was displayed in human zoos across Europe, where she was subjected to public humiliation and forced to perform for audiences. Baartman's captors exploited her body, particularly her large buttocks, which were considered unusual by European standards. She was presented as a scientific curiosity, a grotesque example of primitive womanhood. Bartman's story is a stark reminder of the dehumanizing and objectifying gaze that was cast upon non-European peoples during this period. Section 7. Echoes of the Past, Modern Manifestations of Human Zoos. While traditional human zoos are largely a thing of the past, the racist ideologies that underpin them continue to manifest in various forms. Human safaris, where tourists are taken to visit and observe indigenous communities in their natural habitats, are a prime example of this. These tours often exploit and objectify the communities they claim to celebrate, perpetuating harmful stereotypes and disrupting traditional ways of life. The exoticization of people of color in media, fashion, and advertising is another example of how the legacy of human zoos continues to shape our perceptions of race. From the fetishization of black bodies to the appropriation of indigenous cultures, these practices perpetuate harmful stereotypes and contribute to the ongoing marginalization of non-Western peoples. Section 8. Confronting our history, acknowledging the lasting impact. It is essential to acknowledge the disturbing history of human zoos and their lasting impact on our understanding of race. This dark chapter in human history serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of prejudice, ignorance, and the pursuit of profit over human dignity. We must confront this uncomfortable truth to understand how these racist ideologies continue to permeate our societies today. Ignoring this history only allows the cycle of racism and discrimination to continue. By understanding the roots of these harmful ideologies, we can begin to dismantle the systems that perpetuate them. Education is crucial in this process, as it allows us to learn from the mistakes of the past and create a more just and equitable future. Section 9. Breaking down stereotypes, challenging perceptions of race. The legacy of human zoos reminds us that race is a social construct, not a biological reality. The pseudoscientific theories that were used to justify these displays have long been debunked, yet their impact lingers on in the form of implicit bias and systemic racism. It is our responsibility to challenge these harmful stereotypes and recognize the inherent humanity in all people, regardless of race, ethnicity, or cultural background. We can combat these harmful stereotypes by promoting diversity and inclusion in all aspects of society, from education and employment to media representation and political leadership. By amplifying marginalized voices and celebrating the contributions of people from all walks of life, we can begin to create a more just and equitable world. Section 10. Towards a more just future, education and the dismantling of racism. The journey towards racial justice requires a collective effort to dismantle the systems and structures that perpetuate inequality. Education is crucial in this process, as it empowers individuals to recognize and challenge racism in all its forms. By learning about the history of human zoos and other forms of racial oppression, we can better understand the roots of prejudice and discrimination. We must also support organizations and initiatives that are working to promote racial justice and equality. By working together, we can create a future where all people are treated with dignity and respect, regardless of their race or ethnicity. The history of human zoos serves as a stark reminder of what can happen when we allow prejudice and discrimination to go unchecked. Let us learn from the mistakes of the past and work towards a future where all people are free to live with dignity and respect.